Get a £5 free bet every week with Offer Club from William Hill. Simply stake a total of £20 or more across the week on pre-match football accumulators with 4 or more selections, and you'll get a £5 free bet on the Friday. Join William Hill Offer Club on mobile or online now.
James Helder, IFL TV, in association with Matt King's Gin Marbella. With me, I've got broadcasting legend and man of the pen, none other than Jeff Powell. How are you, Jeff? You all right?
I'm fine, thank you. Looking forward to Saturday.
I am indeed. Firstly, I want to talk a little bit about today. Joshua Molina, very, very calm, very respectful in places. A little bit of spite. You can see Joshua keen to get the job done and stuff. But what did you make of the presser, in your words?
Well, there was a little bit of, I'm going to say joshuing at one point, but that was reasonable. That was putting your marker down. That while both guys are respectful, they're both civilised people. But when it comes to the fight, it's serious and it can be spiteful. And I thought it was just an acknowledgement of that. The one little exchange they had, perfectly acceptable, perfectly reasonable. Two men who know the seriousness of the business. Anthony's got a more light-hearted, cavalier look towards it, but then he's riding the crest of a wave. The other guy's more philosophical. He knows he's been brought here without much expectation of him causing the upset, which would derail the whole Joshua project. But he's prepared to come and take his chance of landing the one big punch for the upset. It's heavyweight boxing. Sometimes it happens, and if his number comes up, he could get lucky on Saturday. I don't expect it. Nobody really expects it except him and his family. But with heavyweights, there's always that faint chance.
Indeed. I want to talk a little bit about what happened yesterday. The altercation involving Derek Chisora, Dillian White. Derek Chisora aiming a table at Dillian White's head. What was your initial reaction to that?
Well, the prevailing philosophy is, well, you know, it sells pay-per-view and it sells tickets and it generates excitement. It's more plausible to argue that it generates a wider audience, and overall that's good for boxing. But at a time when we've got people critically ill from fighting in the ring, one guy died, I don't think it's a very happy incident to occur in that context. There's always been dust up at press conferences down the years. We kind of expect it. But there's a point where the commercial element has to take second place, giving the sport a little dignity.
Is there a thin line between exposure and bringing the sport into alleged disrepute? Is there a very thin line, do you think, between hitting that big market and generating that big pay-per-view sort of interest as to bringing the sport into disrepute?
Well, if that table had hit somebody in the head, we would all be saying the thin line had been crossed. Whether it's been crossed, the British Boxing Board of Control this afternoon.
What can you tell us on this British Board of Control matter? What quotes have you been given thus far? What's going on?
Well, they're meeting this afternoon. There's a range of options, which could be fines, which could be perhaps taking the British title away from the event. There is a suggestion to go as far as pulling the fight off the card. Whatever they do, they've got to do something. You can't just sit by and do nothing, because there is a danger with the kind of following that these two guys have got that it could spill over into the arena on Saturday night, and there could be a fracas of much bigger dimensions with a lot more people involved. So they have to try and get a cap on that one or the other. The only definite, certain way to do it would be to take the fight off the card. I doubt there'll be that draconian, but bear in mind that Derek has been involved in a couple of pretty nasty things already had his licence suspended for a year, the business with David Hay in Germany, so he's got form, so they're going to have to bear in mind his previous as well. It'll be very interesting to see what happens.
Well, is it a case of one fighter is obviously guilty more than another fighter? How do you punish someone for an incident? I know two people involved in the altercation, but one of the fighters hasn't really been physically involved at the press conference. How does that
potentially hurtful, potentially harmful piece of metal was thrown from the other camp. Okay. So they'd have done better just staying out of it, but they chose not to. There was also the scuffle in the Sky Studios,
which looked a lot worse than the press conference scuffle.
Well, and which is also part of the provocation that's happened here. So everybody involved in this, all the major shareholders in these promotions, have got to have a think about where they stand with it too. It's all very well developing the sales, but there is a point where you can go too far.
I think us social media people are a little bit to blame for this.
The
fact that it blows up, the fact that it blows up so quickly in terms of getting it out there.
It supports the view that there's a great element of the public who enjoy all this stuff. So that kind of arms the people who would say, oh, well, it's all part of the game.
Equally, there's people of an older ilk and of a more sort of respectful disposition that don't like that stuff. We've seen that by the comments coming through.
I don't think it's only the older people, because a lot of young guys now are treating going to the fights, the crossover audience are coming in from the younger generation, which is very important to the future of boxing. They are coming with their wives or girlfriends, and they're making it a social night out. They have a lovely evening with the boxing at the centre of it, and they have dinner and what have you. Those people are not willing to find themselves involved in a mass brawl in a Manchester arena.